Sometimes, exploring means entertaining, educated speculation. I'm author and researcher Mike Luoma. I've come across possible indigenous stonework around this low mountain and neighboring hill in Shar-LAWT, Vermont. Possible elements of ceremonial stone landscapes, as well as potentially older indigenous stonework of a more speculative nature, similar to other speculative stonework I've been finding around the Champlain Valley and beyond. 800-foot-high Pease Mountain is relatively small as mountains go, but still tall enough to have been an island in Lake Vermont near the end of the Ice Age and near the shore of the later Champlain Sea, over some 10 to 15,000 years ago. Though not indicated on this map of Glacial Lake Vermont, superimposed on a current USGS map, the neighboring hilltop is of a height enough to have also been poking up above the glacial waters. The weight of the Ice Age's ice sheets actually pushed down the Earth's crust. Once the ice sheets melted and receded, the Earth's crust rebounded, freed of that weight. Land at sea level at Ice Age's end is now 400 to 600 feet above sea level around Lake Champlain. Islands became little mountains. Intriguingly, I've been finding what could be ancient stonework along the former shores of the glacial lakes in the Champlain Sea, in these places now 400 to 600 feet above sea level. That's what brought me here to Pease Mountain, to see if I might find anything interesting. I did. I'll share some speculative stuff, the possibly ancient indigenous stonework I found, and explain what I'm thinking. I'll also share some more obvious potential indigenous stonework as well, all now tucked away in the Vermont woods. Though most of the stonework we find likely does not date back that far, the correlation with ancient shores makes me wonder if the speculative stonework dates back to the Ice Age. Or is it an expression of ancestor worship? Or some other unknown form of commemoration of the past? If it's anything at all. Walking from the neighboring hilltop to the mountain, I spotted a wing or fin-shaped stone in the woods off the trail. This sits at about 550 feet above sea level now, and would have been on the shore of Lake Vermont some 13,000 years ago, if it had stood here for that long. The stone appears shaped and perched in place. I wondered if the stone could be marking anything of astronomical significance, and brought up the Sunseeker app to see if there were any potential solar alignments. We can't truly know, as there are too many trees in the way, but there may be alignments in both directions, with a possible equinox sunset alignment over Pease Mountain to the west, shown by the green line, or potentially a winter solstice sunset alignment lower on the horizon to the south, shown by the light blue line to the left. Looking east, the wing or fin stone could be pointing to an equinox sunrise alignment over the neighboring hilltop, which is in that direction. But again, the trees make that impossible to determine. Wing or fin-shaped stones apparently perched in place are one of the speculative stonework forms I continue to find on the former shorelines of the glacial lakes and sea. Some stand alone, such as this one. Others are perched in apparent alcoves. And some among other wing or fin-shaped stones. There wasn't a great deal more readily apparent stonework on the small mountain itself. These stacked stones on the northwest side may or may not be significant. My two trips here were in late May, the second on Memorial Day weekend, and the greenery was already beginning to obscure the rocks and stones. It was already getting difficult to get a lookout from the summit to Lake Champlain. There's no sound here because a group of college kids were hanging out, chatting away, but they were gracious enough to let me take my shot. Part of the mountain belongs to UVM, the University of Vermont, so their presence was not unexpected on a beautiful holiday weekend. The mountain actually sees lots of traffic, from students and locals. Away from the trails, there's even a radio tower for a station I used to work for years and years ago. All this usage would seem to diminish the likelihood of finding old stonework still existing here in ancient forms. But I did discover a semi-destroyed stone mound on the north side, near the base of the mountain. Video, while better than two-dimensional photos, still doesn't quite capture the shape of this mound, or what's left of it. Could this have just been a clearing pile? Perhaps. But there seems to be some structure to it, though it's now compromised. It clearly seems human-made. It's just a question of which humans, and for what purpose. Back up the slope from the Stone Mound, we find a pair of glacial erratics and a ridgeline whose jumbled stones make it look like the ruins of something constructed. Saving those for later. First, a look at some stonework on the neighboring hilltop. This outcrop marks the highest point of the lower hilltop. I can envision it rising up out of the glacial waters. There are several interesting stone features on this neighboring hilltop, including this stone pile. This could be an indigenous stone prayer. No matter who created it, I think it's best never to disturb the stonework. I'd encourage you to respect it as well. Please do not remove, add to, or alter the stonework found in the woods and forests. I came across two smaller stone piles, stone assemblages, on the other side of the hilltop. Crossing a low ridge on the hilltop revealed this pointed stone, pointing west. I couldn't quite get into position for a good alignment check, though I tried. The pointed stone could also be the tail of the serpentized ridge. Further along this low ridge, we find wingstones added, and finstones further on. This is at 600 feet above sea level. We would have been a few feet above the surface of the glacial lake at this height. These stones seem arranged in a rough semicircle protruding from the side of this low ridge. This prominent stone appears shaped to be, perhaps, a wingstone. The wing shape next to it is a compound form, including at least 3 stones mounted on a fourth, trailing down to stones curving back to the ridge face. This protruding stone assemblage appears constructed, human-made, the closer we examine it. Three or four people could fit back there. Could this have just happened naturally? There are geological arguments involving glaciers which could be made, but a closer look serves as a counterargument. The flat surface of the wingstone is intriguing. What was its purpose? It's along these ancient shorelines especially that I continue to find wing and fin-shaped stones added to exposed bedrock ridges in what appears to be attempts to serpentize the ridge, maybe bring out a serpent effigy form which it may once have evoked. The wings and fins idea comes from ancient indigenous depictions of great serpents, underwater panthers, and sea serpents. Forms with wings and fins, horns, even fur. This stood-up stone is also nearby on the hilltop. The growing tree appears to be destroying this feature. A little further up the ridge, these fins stick out. Again, there seems to be a good chance this stone assemblage was constructed. Stopping to look closer can be revealing. there is a small wing-shaped stone mounted on the ground in front of the fins. I thought there might be a head up here, but as the ridge dwindles a bit, it may have been seen as the serpent form descending underground. Maybe emerging as that outcrop on the highest part of the hilltop. When you descend from that high point down to the main trail, the trails meet at a curious intersection full of wing-shaped stones, and with the look of collapsed stonework. I spotted odd clusters of stacked stones, though it's not possible to attribute great age to these without some investigating and research. I'm sure work has been done to stabilize and fortify the trail at some point. But it would not surprise me if modern folks were adapting and unknowingly building on much more ancient stonework here. Looking back up at the ridge, the bedrock circling up to the left, the gaps, the regular gaps, and the shape of these stones, I'm getting admittedly highly speculative here, but the rock appeared to have been shaped into a rising ring of wing shapes rising up the hillside. Could ancient indigenous people have shaped these to look like wings around the end of the Ice Age? Or maybe not that long ago, but with an awareness that this had been an important place for a very long time. These reminded me of large wing-shaped stones I'd found embellishing ridges in the Flag Swamp in Marlborough, Massachusetts, near the shore of Glacial Lake Assabet, and near the former location of a rock shelter where they found a 4,000-year-old indigenous stone wall, the oldest stone-built construction ever found in Massachusetts. The rock shelter and stone wall were blown up and destroyed to build a highway access road in 1980. Again, understand, this is highly speculative, but seeing my speculative stonework forms repeated gives me increasing confidence that we may be looking at large-scale, ancient work hiding in plain sight. Why would they have shaped these into wings? I don't really know, but I still believe it's worth considering if they did. We're not used to thinking in these terms. In fact, modern New Englanders are really culturally conditioned not to think in these terms. Not taught about 4,000-year-old indigenous-built stone walls, but instead that Indians around here never built with stone, which is obviously incorrect. These two glacial erratics are on the north slope of Pease Mountain. Upslope, the ridgetop is curiously made up of stacked stones that look like the ruins of something constructed. I called up the ridge on LiDAR after visiting. It does have a surprisingly regular shape. Could this be the work of glaciers? Maybe. It could also be what's left of old road work, if an old road came up and over the mountain. Or it could be more ancient work of some kind. Again, engaging in some perhaps wild speculation here. These stones, these rocks, are certainly evocatively stacked. But it could just be naturally occurring. There seems to be an old road around this boulder on the eastern side of the neighboring hilltop. The shape of the boulder reminds me of a serpent's head. Many curiously shaped stones are found around this low mountain and its neighboring hilltop. Hope you've enjoyed this speculation and sharing of experience. If you want more information, check out additional videos on this YouTube channel, the Ancient Stone Mysteries of New England Facebook group, my Ancient Stone Mysteries Substack newsletter, and my book, Ancient Stone Mysteries of New England, available everywhere. Links and details at ancientstonemysteries.com. While it was hard to get a good view from the summit, the overlook allowed for a spacious view to the southeast and a view of the performance of two turkey vultures riding thermals. I'm including over 3 minutes of that footage with and after the credits roll. In just a second here. Hope you enjoy. I'm Mike Luoma. Thank you for experiencing this speculative stonework and possible stone prayers in Shar-LAWT, Vermont with me.